Another week, another tragic chapter for Sanji. I hate to say it, it's not looking good for the cook. This is the year of the Sanji tragedy. So basically, I'll just give my thoughts on the cover page very briefly. I think it's kind of cool that this was requested. Although I honestly wanted like a another cover story. I think those are very interesting because they have some implications for the overall plot. But this was fun. I like how you see a swarm of bees in the background. So these bears are about to get freaking raided by these bees, with the exception of Kuma and possibly Kumashi. Kuma's a cyborg, so. And even then, he could just touch the bees and send them off to like Winnie the Pooh land. Anyway, this chapter was super interesting. We got a lot of information. It's basically part two. I think, yeah, this is part two of like the previous that we got. I think those two kind of coexist together as chapters. Again, we get no information on the Luffy versus Cracker fight or anything related to Big Mom. It's a solely 100% Vince Smoke-centric chapter. We get the confirmation that the soldiers in the test tubes are in fact clones. I guess they took like the DNA or samples of like really formidable soldiers. Some of you said like they kind of look like Virgos, so it might be, like, I don't know. Like, we don't know what the original profile, the original subject was for these clones. Just like, for example, in Star Wars, right, we know that it was Jango Fett. All the clone troopers are replicas of Jango Fett. And according to what Yonji is saying, it seems as if there is more than one original model. I guess depending on the body type, they use a different model. Another thing is that just like in Star Wars, the clones have an accelerated growth rate because otherwise it wouldn't be profitable. You need to find a way of making these soldiers in less time than it would take a normal human being to grow. In this case, it's 5 years. That's equivalent to 20 years. So that's how it works. And also, there's a big reveal here that Judge Vince Smoke, Papa Vince Smoke, used to work as a researcher, a scientist with Vegapunk. Now, obviously, the whole scientist theme is related still to Nazis. Nazis did a lot of experiments on human subjects to try and create the best race possible. But the fact that he was tied to Vegapunk is really surprising. And honestly, I think that part, the Sanji, not Sanji, the part where Yonji says, oh, basically the world government found out that they knew how to like create life, or they found out about the life lineage or whatever. Yeah. And then Vegapunk got arrested. I think that's bullshit. I think what happened is they came up with the formula. They found out how to manipulate life to create clones, how to make adjustments, and then I think Judge sold out Vegapunk to the government. Because remember, Vegapunk is one of the most well-known, he's the most brilliant scientific mind in the entire One Piece world. So I think what happened is like Judge found out about this and he's like, you know what? He sold him out. He sold him out to the world government. He said, hey, I'm going to trade you. You let me go, you let me escape, you let me do my thing, I'm going to give you Vegapunk. Now, another reason for this is Germa is recognized as a kingdom under the world government. It makes no sense for him to be like, oh, I'm like running away, but I'm also a kingdom. No. I think there was a trade. I think Vegapunk was traded in so that Judge could have Germa 66 and just be recognized as a kingdom, and then also allowed to continue his research. Another thing here is that because of his ties with Vegapunk, Caesar should probably also know who Judge is. So when Caesar sees Judge, I'm pretty sure he's going to be like, oh, I know who you are. And we're probably going to get the truth that way.
Execute Order 66.
So the clones are basically just there as pawns. They don't fear death, which is why the Vince Smokes have an easy time using them as human shields. Then we have a little bit of a scuffle. There's a fight here between Sanji and Niji. Sanji doesn't use Diablo Jamba or anything. It's just a casual kick on Niji's face, and it hits, and you can see, I think he actually did manage to dislocate his jaw, because you see a panel of Niji kind of like adjusting it, just like clack. Long story short, Sanji takes another L. The L streak is unstoppable when it comes to Sanji. Now I know, listen, I know, like if you're a Sanji fanboy, I get it. Like, I feel the exact same way when Oda makes like Usopp act like a total coward. That pisses me off. It's really infuriating. And in this case, there's a couple of things though that I want to mention. First of all, Ichiji kind of like, I don't know if he broke his concentration, but he told Sanji, hey, you better cool it. because we still have Zeph. So that pretty much like, whoa, yeah, shit, I forgot. And then another thing is that if you notice, Niji he says something to avoid getting seen. I think it's stealth. So I don't know if that's something that you can use to avoid getting perceived by observation hockey. But I'm pretty sure it has to be something like that because Sanji's observation hockey is like on point. So the only way he would have been able to sneak up behind him is if he would have been able to like not get perceived through that observation hockey. Now, there is some good news for the Sanji fanboys. Really, really good news, actually. But before I get into that, I just want to note how like Niji is using electricity with his attacks. I think it's a knee kick, and then he does a punch. That's another thing too that kind of like puts Sanji at a disadvantage, that he doesn't use his hands for fighting. But you know, maybe he might realize during this arc that it's like, no, like I have to start using my hands as, you know, as a way of fighting from now on, because like the new world is not a game. Now it's also important to note that Niji is using electricity because it kind of got me thinking about, so does that mean that every Vinsmoke has an affinity to a specific element? Like Niji is electricity, Reiju is poison, and Sanji is fire or something like that? I don't know, just food for thought. Now, the thing that I think is absolutely great news is this little part right here. When Judge is talking to the kids in the flashback, because this is how the chapter ends, with a flashback, and it'll probably continue on to next chapter. He says, the blood that courses through your veins has been blessed with limitless potential. For that potential to be realized, all that's left for you to do is train. Now, this is actually really good news for Sanji because there was a comment, and you'll see it in a little bit, but basically the comment said that perhaps Sanji is the only biological son of Judge. And in this chapter, we actually get confirmation that Sanji did in fact have a mom, but she passed away. Now notice how the conversation is only between Judge and Sanji. So we know Sanji had a mom, but we don't know if the other siblings did. That's all we know. Also, the comment kind of implies that the reason why Judge wears a helmet is to hide his eyebrows because they actually twirl in the same direction as Sanji's. Now, I think at one point in an SBS, Oda was asked about Sanji's eyebrows, and he said, oh, it's like circular energy. Circular energy is the basis of everything. And it got me thinking, now that we know that, you know, Judge and Vegapunk used to work together, I wonder how much is that spiral related to, you know, the power within devil fruits? And what does that mean for you know, the gene of like life, or whatever you want to call it, the creation gene, whatever. So with that in mind, we also know that Sanji's mom was a very good person by the way that Sanji behaves. Sanji was kind of like, you know, imitating, just copying her behavior in feeding or serving animals and being kind to them. In this case, we have an example with a rat and a turtle. The other siblings, on the other hand, I don't know, they didn't follow that example, or they didn't see that example or whatever, but yeah, they just found that weird, and they even beat Sanji up. My point is this, in the flashback, we also get to see that Yonji was capable of beating Sanji up. That is not the case anymore. It is confirmed, we have evidence, Sanji can now beat Yonji up. That's number one. So, when Judge says that this blood that has infinite potential flows through your veins, what if the reason why the other siblings were able to be like superhuman from a very early age is because they were created. They were not biological children. But when it comes to Sanji, the reason he was weak in the beginning is because he was human, and therefore this power, it just takes longer for him to manifest that power. In other words, what if Sanji is just a late bloomer? I mean, to me that would make perfect sense. And I don't think Oda would introduce like this genetical manipulation sort of background story if it wasn't going to have a consequence in this arc. So I really do think that Sanji is going to awaken a new power or have a new mode by the end of this arc. It'd be kind of cool if he could imitate like Niji and start using electricity along with his fire. That'd be kind of cool. Other than that, I loved Reiju in this chapter so much. We kind of find out that she's not a bitch. She's just being practical. She's like, yeah, I have to laugh along with them because I don't want to get bullied like you. Oh man, that was just, I don't know. I like Reiju. I honestly think she's going to have to play a role in getting Sanji to escape. That to me makes perfect sense. Obviously, actually, speaking of Reiju, there's this one part where the scientist who's basically sort of like scanning or evaluating the condition of the sibling says, Lord Ichiji, Niji, Yonji are all right on track. But he doesn't mention Reiju, so I'm like, okay, what happened there? What's going on with her? And honestly, just knowing how Sanji is, I'm pretty sure that even though he hates like getting beat up and all this stuff, I think he would rather have that happen to him than that happen to his sister. In fact, there was this one quote in Water 7 that really stood out for me from Sanji. It's when Robin says, like, you gotta leave me alone, stop following me, I'm never coming back to you. Chopper just doesn't understand Robin. And then Sanji looks at Chopper and he tells him, you know, Chopper, a real man has to be able to forgive a woman's lies. That really stuck out to me, so I'm pretty sure that's something that he learned with either his sister or his mom. And finally, we have the whole reference to the man in the Iron Mask. If you don't know the story, it's basically about Louis XIV, King of France. Actually, I think Oda at one point even said that if Sanji were to come from a country in the real world, he would come from France. So it all makes sense. Basically, the king puts his twin brother in a metal mask because he doesn't want people to find out his identity. But there's another interpretation to it, which is basically that he used the mask because his twin brother, because they had the same face, he didn't want to be reminded of somebody that had the same face as him that was weaker, significantly weaker, and he felt that his brother was below him. So he didn't want to be reminded of that, so he covered his face up and locked him up for good, which is basically what happens to Sanji because Judge just considers him to be a reminder of that weakness and that failure. And it's super sad, man. Like that final panel of him just screaming out, just apologizing for being weak, like, oh my God. And I thought the flashback of him almost starving to death on a desert island was already enough. So Oda, stop it. Stop it, man. Not cool. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that he's gonna come out stronger. I mean, he did come out stronger from this, so there's no reason to believe otherwise. Thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you did. I appreciate that. Subscribe to my channel for more One Piece related stuff, and I'll catch you guys later.